Even though President-elect Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies, he may never serve a day in jail. But many innocent people do end up behind bars for decades. According to the Innocence Project, 25% of wrongful convictions that were overturned by DNA evidence involve a false confession. Joining me now is Amanda Knox, who spent nearly 4 years in an Italian prison and 8 years on trial for a murder she didn't commit. She now co-hosts the podcast Labyrinths, where she's currently exploring the topic of wrongful convictions. She's also the author of the forthcoming book, Free: My Search for Meaning. Amanda, thanks for joining us. Since your acquittal and your release, you've used your platform to advocate for the wrongly accused. Talk about why it was so important to do this. Why relive part of this process that you also walked in terms of your own journey?
That's a great question, Katie, and it's great to see you again. To be honest, when I came home from prison, I really wanted to go back to the life that I had before I was wrongly accused and thrown into prison. And I realized that that wasn't really an option for me, not just because the media would not leave me alone, but also because I was deeply changed by this experience. I now knew something about the world and about the criminal justice system that I had no access to before it happened to me. I was raised to trust police, to have faith in the system, and I was ignorant. I didn't know a lot of what I knew today. And after meeting other wrongly convicted people, I realized that because my case was so huge in the media and because I don't look like your typical wrongfully convicted person, I could be a bridge between the kinds of people who end up being victimized and the kinds of people who, like me, remained ignorant about the system. And so I felt like I had this important role to play in not just shedding light on what happened to me, but on shedding light on what's happening to so many people behind closed doors.
You know, Amanda, you have justifiably criticized the media and the press for being, quote, first and loudest when it came to coverage about you, your case, and what's happened with you. It's important for people to read beyond the headlines, beyond the clickbait, right? To be able to critically think for themselves about what's real. Is that part of the reason why you also decided to write a book about what you've experienced?
Yeah, I think that inevitably, these wrongful conviction cases are not black and white. And I think that's a really important thing to remember about crime in general, is that when these things happen, it's not just because there are good guys and bad guys and nothing in between. It is a complicated mess, and untangling it involves more than just sound bites and headlines. It really is digging deep into not just the facts, but also the psychology behind a lot of these things. And a huge factor in my own wrongful conviction had to do with the false confession piece. I think a lot of people, despite the fact that there was zero evidence of my involvement in this crime, they could not get past this counterintuitive idea that an innocent person would never implicate themselves or others in a crime that they had nothing to do with. And so my biggest thing that I advocate for within the wrongful conviction arena is what is happening in police interrogation rooms and what can we do to prevent innocent people from being coerced into implicating themselves and others.
Yeah, I read an interview and you said that you thought that the police, in your instance, they were under a lot of pressure to come up with answers. That's got to be true, right? They have to be able to, quote, solve the crime. And so they're hell bent on making sure that they get that.
Yes. In fact, the Supreme Court, in their document that acquitted me, in their verdict that acquitted me definitively of having to do with anything that with this murder, they cited the pressure that the media was putting on these local police people to solve the crime immediately and to provide the public with that reassuring answer that they have the case closed. And unfortunately, that led them to make very hasty decisions and in arresting people before they had any evidence available to them. And it encouraged them to use these interrogation techniques against an innocent 20-year-old girl to try to force her to provide answers that she didn't have.
Amanda Knox, I wish I had some more time. I would love to have you come back because you wrote about this single victim fallacy, which was illogical, and I was really fascinated by it. But thank you for spending the time that you could today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And please check out my work on amandaknox.com. And if you want to learn more about false confessions, you can just check out my podcast, Labyrinths. Thank you.
And I'm going to remind everybody your book is coming out in March of 2025. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. MSNBC Reports with Alex Witt is next.